Hi there, I'm Hillary Marlowe. Not every family casts you out over something as small as refusing to look after a pet. Mine did. The night my sister snapped, "Get out of my sight," I thought that was the lowest point. I thought nothing could cut deeper than that moment. But I was wrong. That wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something far worse. They didn't just push me out of the house, they rewrote everything. They turned me into the villain of a story I didn't even recognize, drained every piece of stability I had left, and quietly took control of things that were never theirs. Papers were signed without me, my name was removed like it never belonged, and all the while they smiled for cameras and played the perfect family. And the worst part? I kept asking myself one question: how far can your own blood go before you finally shatter? The Marlowe estate always carried the scent of roses mixed with something older, something heavier, like tradition and wealth woven into the walls. But that night in June 2015, it didn't feel like home. It felt suffocating. The chandeliers glared too brightly. The marble floors felt cold beneath my feet. Even the air felt thick, like it didn't want to be breathed. I stood near the grand foyer, the same place where we had staged flawless family dinners for the outside world. Behind those polished moments, though, nothing about us was perfect. Astrid moved through the room with effortless confidence, like everything belonged to her. In many ways, it did. She had always been the favorite, the golden one, the daughter who shined under our parents' approval. And I was the opposite, the imperfection, the part of the picture they wished they could erase completely. Dinner had ended. Our parents had already disappeared upstairs, leaving behind silence that stretched tight between us. Astrid crossed her arms, her usual polished smile gone. Her expression hardened as she looked at me. "You're going to take care of my cat, Hillary. That's not a request." I stared at her, confused and irritated. "You can't be serious." She stepped closer, her voice dropping into something colder, sharper. "I messed up, and if the press finds out that Mr. Coleman's cat got sick while I was responsible, it'll be everywhere by morning. So you're going to take the blame. You'll make it look like it was your fault." I shook my head immediately. "No, I'm not covering for you. Not this time." For a split second, something in her expression cracked. Then it vanished, replaced by anger. "You ungrateful brat. After everything Mom and Dad have given you, you think you're above me?" My throat tightened, but I didn't step back. "I won't lie for you." Her voice rose, final and cutting. "Then get out of my sight. You're not part of this family anymore." The words hit hard. Before I could even respond, our mother's voice drifted down from the staircase. "Maybe that's for the best," Karen said coolly, swirling her drink as if she were commenting on the weather. "You've always been a burden anyway." That was the moment that truly broke something inside me. Not Astrid's cruelty, but how easily my mother agreed with it. I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself. I picked up my old backpack, already half filled with the few things that were actually mine. My father stood near the fireplace, staring into the flames like nothing around him mattered. I waited. I hoped he would say something, anything. He didn't even look at me. As I reached the door, Astrid called out behind me, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Good luck out there, sweetheart. The world's going to tear you apart." I stepped outside into the heavy night air. It hit me all at once, hot, suffocating. I walked away without turning back, the mansion glowing behind me like a cruel illusion. By the time I reached a bus stop downtown, it was well past midnight. I sat on the bench, my backpack at my feet, letting everything sink in. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. I ignored it at first. When I finally looked, my stomach dropped. Headlines flooded my screen. "Marlowe heiress abandons dying animal. A daughter's betrayal." They had rewritten everything overnight. Their PR team had done its job perfectly. I was now the cold, heartless daughter who abandoned a helpless pet and turned her back on her loving family. My face was everywhere, paired with comments tearing me apart. No one asked questions. No one wanted the truth. I spent the day wandering through Dallas, barely aware where I was going. I caught glimpses of myself in cafe windows, reflections that didn't feel like me anymore. By evening, I found myself standing on an overpass, watching the stream of headlights blur into the distance. That was when it hit me. This is what it feels like to be erased. The sky shifted above me, streetlights flickering as if the world itself couldn't decide whether to leave me in darkness or pull me back into the light. I slipped my phone into my pocket and whispered into the empty night, "They think they've buried me. They're wrong. They'll regret it." That sentence stayed with me. It became the only thing holding me together. A year passed. By the summer of 2016, I'd pieced together a fragile life in South Dallas, a rented room above Mara's diner, long shifts in grease-stained uniforms, constant exhaustion. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I didn't belong to them anymore. Most nights I closed the diner after midnight, wiping counters while the neon sign outside flickered like it might give out at any second. Sometimes Mara would leave a note beside a slice of pie. "Keep going, kiddo. You're stronger than they think." I held on to those words more she realized. One Tuesday night, after the last customer left, Mara handed me an envelope, said it looked official. The moment I saw the state seal, my chest tightened. Upstairs, sitting on my bed, I opened it. The words hit like a punch. Notice of liability, animal welfare case. My name listed not as a witness, but as the legal guardian. I read it again and again. My signature was there, or at least something meant to look like it. Documents followed, statements, reports, all fabricated, all pointing at me. I sat there shaking as my mother's voice echoed in my mind. "You've always been a burden anyway." The next few days blurred together. I kept working, kept smiling, pretending everything was normal, while something inside me fractured. Then one night, I found another envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside, a note. "Stay silent or everyone will know who you really are." Along with it, a USB drive. When I played the video, my blood ran cold. Grainy footage of someone who looked like me yelling at a cat, but it wasn't real. The movements were off, the voice distorted, edited, manufactured. At the end, bold text labeled me as an abuser. They weren't done. They were building something bigger, something impossible to fight. I shut the laptop, heart racing. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard their voices, saw their faces, felt their control tightening even from a distance. But I kept going, because survival didn't give me a choice. One night, sitting alone in the diner after closing, I pulled out the court letter and the USB. I stared at them, feeling the weight of everything I'd been running from. I pressed my forehead against the counter, breathing unsteady. The tears never came. Instead, I whispered into the silence, "You want war? Fine, you'll have it." That sentence stayed with me. It became the only thing holding me together. The months that followed were harsh. I worked nonstop, saved everything I could, enrolled in night classes. Slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt. By spring 2017, I had my GED and enough savings to open a small shop on Polk Street, a pet care store. The irony wasn't lost on me. During the day, I worked the shop. At night, I studied business and law at the diner. Bit by bit, I created something of my own, until one call changed everything. It came one evening in late May. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. A man introduced himself as a lawyer representing my family. He told me my mother was critically ill, that she wanted to see me. I hesitated. Every word felt rehearsed. Still, I said yes. The next day, I stood again at the Marlowe estate. Everything looked untouched. Perfect. But I wasn't the same. Upstairs, my mother lay in bed, weak, surrounded by machines. She spoke of regret, of wanting to fix things. I wanted to believe her. Then she handed me documents, said it was routine. Her hand trembled. My guard slipped. I signed. Weeks passed. She recovered quickly, too quickly. And then came the truth. A notice showing I had transferred my inheritance to her, my grandmother's trust, signed away. She had never been dying. Days later, Mara came to my shop with news. A scholarship had been withdrawn. Not mine, Laya's. The donor who pulled funding carried my family name. That was when I realized they weren't just targeting me anymore. That night, sitting outside the diner, I made a promise. They could destroy everything around me, but they would never break me. 2 years passed. By 2019, I had built something real. SafePaw grew into a recognized brand. We secured a major deal with one of Texas's biggest pet chains. Sitting in that boardroom, hearing people say I had made it, I almost believed it. Then my phone exploded with notifications. Missed calls, messages, headlines. Astrid Marlowe makes shocking claims on national television. I opened the video. There she was, perfect as always, smiling, acting innocent, telling the world I was unstable, that I had abandoned everything, that I was the problem. The audience reacted. Social media followed. My name spread again, twisted and torn apart. Old photos resurfaced. Stories reappeared. Pictures of me from years ago resurfaced. The worst ones. The ones my mother's PR team always kept on standby. By the time I made it back to SafePaw's office, my inbox was flooded. Waiting for me at the top of the pile was an email from PetMart's corporate office. Subject: contract suspension. I clicked, my pulse racing. Due to unforeseen public concerns regarding Miss Hillary Marlowe's personal history, we regret to inform you that our partnership is suspended until further notice. My legs buckled beneath me. I sank into the nearest chair, reading the message over and over, hoping I'd somehow misunderstood. But the words didn't change. Everything I'd worked for, the years of grinding, of bleeding for every inch forward, shattered in a matter of minutes because my sister knew how to pull strings and smile for the camera. That evening, I sat in the corner of my apartment, the TV playing on mute, replaying Astrid's interview like a nightmare on loop. I could still hear her voice. My sister chose to walk away. She never cared about family. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to disappear. Instead, I sat there frozen, watching the headlines scroll across the screen, feeling the walls close in. They had dragged my name through the mud the last time. That night, those words played on repeat inside my head like a war drum. I didn't sleep, couldn't. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, staring at the empty contract from PetMart and the headlines still lighting up my phone. The following months weren't easy. Cleaning up the damage Astrid caused took everything I had left. I spent days in crisis meetings with my staff, assuring them we weren't going under. Nights were filled with damage control calls, PR statements, and endless apologetic emails to clients who were now hesitant to associate with my name. But slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt. SafePaw was dented, but still breathing. So was I. By January 2020, I thought maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind me. That illusion shattered on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday. It was late afternoon when the knock came. I was in my office reviewing inventory reports, the faint hum of traffic outside blending with the low chatter of my employees in the next room. When I opened the door, a man in a gray suit handed me a thick envelope, nodded politely, and walked away without a word. My heart sank before I even looked inside. Legal documents, the Marlowe family name stamped at the top. I sank into my chair, the weight of the envelope heavy in my lap. The lawsuit was clear: defamation, libel, emotional distress. They were suing me, my own parents and Astrid, for millions of dollars. Their claims that I'd knowingly spread false stories intended to damage the Marlowe family's public image, that I'd fabricated scandals and weaponized private family matters for personal gain. I read the accusations 3 times before I could even process them. This wasn't just another smear campaign. They wanted to destroy me legally, financially, permanently. My phone buzzed on my desk. Mara's name flashed on the screen. I couldn't answer, not yet. I spent the rest of the day locked in my office, the lawsuit spread across my desk like a death sentence. Every line felt like a knife, every accusation designed to make me feel small, guilty, worthless. By evening, I forced myself to leave. The office was empty by then, staff gone home, unaware of the storm about to hit. On my way out, I glanced at the calendar on the wall. February 1st. Exactly 1 year since Astrid's televised stunt. It felt like the universe was mocking me. That weekend, I agreed to attend a charity fundraiser Mara had invited me to months ago. I didn't want to go, but I needed a break, even if it meant pretending for a few hours that my life wasn't falling apart. The ballroom was packed, glittering gowns and pressed suits everywhere. I barely made it through small talk and forced smiles when I heard a voice behind me. Well, if it isn't the ghost of the family. I turned. Dorian, Astrid's childhood friend, one of the few people who had ever looked at me like I was human back then. He looked awkward, drink in hand, shifting his weight like he wanted to be anywhere but here. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, clearing his throat. "Trust me," I replied flatly. Neither did I. We exchanged small talk, surface-level pleasantries, until halfway through his second drink, he leaned in and muttered, "You know, I probably shouldn't say this, but last Christmas, your dad was ranting about offshore accounts, said something about needing to clean up before the IRS got curious." I blinked. He kept talking, voice low. "I didn't catch much, just that your mom funneled donations through some charity that doesn't exist. Something about Cayman accounts, I think." He laughed awkwardly. Typical Marlowe drama, right? My heart raced beneath my calm expression. When I got home that night, I sat at my desk, the lawsuit still staring at me like a loaded weapon. But this time, something felt different. I opened my laptop. In my inbox, a message from Dorian. "Hey, not sure if it matters, but I found the name of that offshore firm. Let me know if you want it." I stared at the screen, a slow, cold smile creeping across my face. They think they can sue me into silence? They're about to learn who I've become. That thought burned inside me for weeks after Dorian's email arrived in my inbox, a tiny ember I fanned into something sharp and dangerous. It wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about ending the game they'd been playing with me since the day they threw me out. By the fall of 2020, I had clawed SafePaw back from the edge. It wasn't easy. I lost clients, employees, even friends who had quietly distanced themselves when the lawsuits hit the press. But the business survived, and so did I. Most nights now, I worked late in Quentin's law office, tucked away in downtown Dallas, surrounded by stacks of folders and spreadsheets instead of pet food and customer orders. Quentin, my attorney, one of the few people who hadn't abandoned me when the headlines turned ugly, sat across from me, glasses low on his nose, scanning a spreadsheet like it held the secrets of the universe. "You're sure you want to go this route?" he asked, without looking up. "I've spent years letting them pull the strings," I said quietly. "It ends now." He slid a file across the desk. Inside were copies of the documents Dorian had referenced, the ones that had taken Quentin weeks to quietly gather through legal back channels, tax records, bank transfers, letters of donation that funneled money through fake charities straight into offshore accounts in the Caymans. At the bottom of one page in crisp black ink was my signature, forged neatly beside financial authorizations I'd never seen before. "They used your name in several shell companies," Quentin said. You were listed as co-signer on at least 3 charitable foundations that don't exist. I swallowed hard, my pulse roaring in my ears. They hadn't just stolen my reputation, they had stolen my name, my identity again to launder money. This is enough to sink them, Quentin continued. Tax fraud, embezzlement, wire fraud, and with Dorian's testimony, he didn't need to finish. I stared at the papers, each line of numbers and fake signatures like a nail in the coffin they'd built for themselves. Weeks passed as we quietly prepared the case. I stayed off social media. I didn't respond to comments, rumors, or press inquiries until one Thursday morning when everything erupted again. I was in the middle of reviewing invoices at SafePaw when my phone buzzed uncontrollably. Dozens of missed calls, texts, emails, all with the same subject line. Breaking, Hillary Marlowe accused of blackmail. I clicked one of the articles, my heart sinking as I read. In an exclusive statement, sources close to the Marlowe family claim their estranged daughter has attempted to extort money in exchange for keeping private family matters secret. The family is heartbroken by her actions and intends to take appropriate legal steps. A video clip played beneath the headline. My parents' attorney stood outside the courthouse, solemn-faced, saying, "We had hoped to resolve this privately. Unfortunately, Miss Marlowe has left us no choice." My hands trembled as I set the phone down. They'd leaked the lawsuit to the media, twisted the narrative again, painted me as the villain, the unstable daughter desperate for money. By noon, my inbox was filled with hateful messages, news outlets requesting statements, clients asking if I was involved in criminal activity. Quentin called that afternoon. "You saw it?" he asked. "They're trying to force my hand," I said quietly. "They want you to fold." I looked out the office window, the Dallas skyline sharp against the evening sky. "Well," I said slowly, "they're about to learn something new about me." That night, Quentin and I sat across from each other in his office, documents and digital files spread across the table like weapons ready for battle. I glanced at him, my voice calm but edged with steel. "Enough games. It's time to end this." Those words were the last thing I told Quentin before we stepped into the storm. For weeks we prepared. Every falsified signature, every shady email, every document they'd buried. I gathered them like weapons, brick by brick. Quentin stayed late with me night after night, tightening every legal knot until there wasn't a single thread left loose. Then December arrived, cold and sharp, and with it an invitation, Astrid's engagement party. It was everywhere, glossy magazines, social media, society pages, the crown jewel of the Marlowe family's perfect image, the Ashbury Grand Hotel, the most expensive ballroom in Dallas, hundreds of guests, politicians, CEOs, high society names, the perfect stage. That night, I stood outside the Grand's glowing entrance, the winter air biting against my skin. I wore a simple black fitted dress, no glitter, no diamonds, a deliberate contrast to the silk and shine waiting inside. As I stepped through the doors, the ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and carefully curated smiles. Music floated over the low hum of conversation. No one noticed me at first, a ghost moving through a sea of masks, but that wouldn't last. I walked slowly past faces I knew too well, past strangers who only knew the version of me my family had sold to the tabloids. At the front of the room, beneath 1,000 sparkling lights, Astrid stood in white, radiant, her fiancé smiling at her side. The music softened as she took the microphone. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began sweetly. "It means everything to celebrate this next chapter surrounded by family and friends." I waited until the applause died down. Then I stepped forward. Heads turned, whispers rippled like a wave. I stopped a few feet from the stage, meeting Astrid's eyes. Her smile faltered. From my clutch, I pulled a black envelope sealed in red wax. "Forgive the interruption," I said, voice clear and even, "but I thought the truth deserved a place at tonight's celebration." The room fell silent. I handed the envelope to Dorian, Astrid's fiancé, standing near the edge of the stage. "Open it." He hesitated, then broke the seal and unfolded the papers. His eyes scanned the pages, widening with every line. Astrid shifted beside him, her posture stiff. "Ladies and gentlemen," I continued, "inside that envelope is proof that Astrid Marlowe never completed medical school, that her career, her credentials, all lies. Lies she built using my name." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I wasn't finished. From my bag, I pulled a slim flash drive. Quentin, standing near the back, gave a small nod. The projector behind the stage flickered to life. One by one, the documents appeared on screen. Forged signatures, falsified tax records, charity donations laundered through offshore accounts, emails with my name attached, twisting me into their lies. Each slide cracked the Marlowe family's pristine mask. Corinne's face drained of color. Gareth stood rigid, jaw tight. The final image lingered, a spreadsheet mapping every fraudulent dollar. The room erupted. Guests whispered behind their hands. Some stared openly, some quietly slipped toward the exits. Then the ballroom doors swung open. 2 federal agents entered, followed by 2 IRS officers. They moved fast, cutting through the crowd. "Karen Marlowe and Gareth Marlowe," one agent announced, "you're under arrest for tax fraud, money laundering, and falsification of financial records." Karen straightened, already slipping into her well-rehearsed calm. "This is a mistake," she said smoothly. "We'll clear this up." The agent didn't flinch. Gareth said nothing. He didn't even lift his head. Handcuffs clicked shut around their wrists. The crowd watched in stunned silence. I stood still, heart pounding, not with fear, but something colder. Vindication. As they cast me, Corinne's gaze met mine, sharp, disbelieving. I didn't look away. I walked to the microphone, the ballroom silent but for my steps. I took one breath. "You erased me from this family," I said quietly, "but tonight I erased your lies." I left the stage without looking back. At the door, I heard Astrid's voice behind me, soft, desperate. "Wait, Hillary, please." I glanced over my shoulder long enough to see her collapse, white dress crumpling around her like wilted petals. I kept walking. They thought they'd buried me, but tonight I buried them. "You erased me from this family, but tonight I erased your lies." That sentence echoed in every news headline the next morning. It was everywhere: television, newspapers, social media, clips of my parents being handcuffed, snapshots of Astrid collapsing on that polished marble floor. Their fall was the city's favorite spectacle, and I had set the match. For the first time in years, the world wasn't pointing fingers at me. Instead, it stared wide-eyed at the wreckage of the Marlowe family. But victory, I quickly learned, wasn't sweet. It was hollow. The days that followed blurred together. Reporters camped outside my apartment. Strangers sent flowers and apology notes. Others sent hate mail, convinced I had destroyed a good, respectable family. I turned off my phone, pulled the curtain shut, went back to working at SafePaw, quietly rebuilding order in the only part of my life I could control. On the 3rd night, I sat alone in my living room, a cup of tea untouched in my hands. When the knock came, it was nearly midnight. I opened the door to find Astrid standing there, or what was left of her. Her eyes were hollow, rimmed red, mascara smeared down her cheeks. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her hands trembling at her sides. "Please," she whispered, I didn't know where else to go." I didn't step aside. I didn't invite her in. She stood there on the doorstep, the cold night pressing in around us. "I have nothing left," she said, voice breaking. "They're gone, the money, the name, everything." Tears slid down her face as she looked at me, desperate, defeated. "You're my sister," she said, voice cracking. "Please, Hillary, forgive me. I didn't mean for any of this. I didn't know how to stop." I felt something shift in my chest. Not pity, not hate, something colder, sadder. "You had choices," I said quietly. "Every step of the way, you had choices." She shook her head, a sob escaping her lips. "It was them," she insisted. "Mom and Dad. They made me believe you were the problem, that you were dangerous. I didn't realize until it was too late." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I could have lied, told her I forgave her, pretended this was the ending she wanted. Instead, I took a breath and said the only truth left between us. "You didn't destroy me, Astrid, but you tried." Her shoulders collapsed, the weight of everything finally crushing her. She fell to her knees right there in the hallway, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't move. Eventually, Mara showed up, her face grim, Dorian trailing behind her. They stayed back, letting Astrid crumble without interference. The next day, Mara texted me. "Astrid's under psychiatric watch. She tried to hurt herself. They'll keep her there for now." I stared at the message longer than I should have. I wasn't surprised. That night, I stood by my apartment window watching the Dallas skyline stretch far into the distance, city lights flickering like scattered memories. I thought about how easy it would have been to become them, to twist my pain into something destructive, to let it rot me from the inside out. Instead, I had done the only thing they never expected. I had survived. I whispered to the empty room, voice steady despite the ache in my chest. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped letting them destroy me. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped letting them destroy me. Those words stayed with me long after the headlines faded and the cameras moved on to the next scandal. It's strange how quickly the world moves when you're no longer at the center of its spectacle. In the weeks after that night at the Ashbury Grand, the Marlowe name became a cautionary tale. Karen and Gareth's court dates were scheduled, the charges stacked against them like dominoes. Fraud, tax evasion, identity theft. The press ran updates every morning, but by afternoon, the city had turned its attention elsewhere. And me? I quietly picked up the pieces of the life they hadn't managed to shatter. Mara started stopping by the diner again, sometimes bringing coffee, sometimes just herself. One gray January morning, I sat across from her at our usual booth, the hum of conversation around us comforting in its ordinariness. "You know," she said, stirring sugar into her coffee, "you could have burned everything down, but you didn't." I gave her a tired smile. Maybe I did, just not the way they expected. She reached across the table, her fingers wrapping gently around mine. "You made it out, Hillary. That's what matters." It wasn't until I got home that evening, my apartment unusually quiet, that I let her words sink in. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was breathing, finally without the weight of their shadows pressing on my chest. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a message from Dorian. "You did what no one else could. Thank you." Short, simple enough. The Marlowe estate had been sold at auction, the mansion stripped bare like a forgotten ruin. I hadn't got near it until that morning when I found myself driving past the iron gates, now rusting, the hedges overgrown. I pulled over, sitting in silence as I stared at what used to be my childhood home. The windows were dark, the driveway empty. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. Later that week, I walked into SafePaw's new storefront on Maple Avenue. We'd finally reopened, smaller but sturdier. No flash, no headlines, just the work I'd built with my own hands, brick by brick. Quentin met me there, carrying a folder. "You're officially free," he said, handing me the papers. "Everything's cleared. You own this business outright. No lawsuits, no liens." I took the documents, running my fingers over the embossed seal at the bottom. "For the first time," I said quietly, "I'm not surviving, I'm living." He smiled at me, that rare, genuine smile of his. "You earned it." As the afternoon light slanted across the pavement, I stood outside the storefront watching customers come and go. Life wasn't perfect. The scars hadn't vanished. Astrid remained under psychiatric care. Our parents' trials were still pending. Some people still whispered when they heard my name, but none of it owned me anymore. I walked back inside, the bell above the door chiming softly, and closed it behind me. Looking back, I realized now this wasn't a story about revenge. It was about survival, about reclaiming the parts of myself that my own family tried to erase. If you've ever felt like you weren't enough, if you've ever been told you're too broken, too messy, too much, let me remind you, you don't need anyone's permission to live your truth. I spent years trying to prove my worth to people who would never see it, and the moment I stopped fighting for their approval, I finally started fighting for myself. Family can love you, but they can also lie to you. They can lift you up or tear you down, but at the end of the day, it's not their version of you that matters. It's who you choose to become. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to walk away from people you thought would never hurt you? If so, how did you find your way back to yourself? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. And if this video touched you, if it made you think about your own family, your own scars, drop a number 1 in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, or if this video made you uncomfortable. If you didn't like it, tell me why. Let's talk about it. This channel is a place for real stories, real emotions, and real conversations. And hey, if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.